I changed my reading, so you probably have two sets of poems in front of you. But it's when I realized that the theme of this is rewriting the map of Europe. And my next book is all about maps. I was thinking about maps in Jamaica, where I'm from, and I was looking at some of the old maps, and I was more interested in what maps don't include. And maps pretend to be innocent, but they're never innocent. They constitute places, they invent histories, and they're very, very weird. So the whole book, the main sequence, the book is called The Cartographer Tries to Map a Way to Zion. And it imagines a cartographer in conversation with a Rasta man. So it's the very scientific language of cartography against the very spiritual language of Rastafari, and they understand the land in two very different ways. And this just went off. So I'll just read a few points from that sequence. This is one of the first points. It's not in the sequence, but it's what the map maker ought to know. On this island, things fidget, even history. The landscape does not sit willingly, as if behind an easel, holding pose, waiting on someone to pencil its lines, compose its best features or unruly contours. Landmarks shift, become unfixed by earthquake, by landslide, by utter spite. Whole places will slip out from your grip. Now this is the sequence. The cartographer tries to map a way to Zion. 1, in which the cartographer explains himself. You might say my job is not to lose myself exactly, but to imagine what loss might feel like. The sudden creeping pace, the consultation with trees and blue fences and whatever else might prove a landmark. My job is to imagine the widening of the unfamiliar and also the widening ache of it, to anticipate the ironic question, how did we find ourselves here? My job is to untangle the tangled, to unworry the concerned, to guide you out from cul-de-sacs into which you may have wrongly turned. 2, in which the Rastaman disagrees. The Rastaman has another reasoning. He says, no, that man's job is never straightforward or easy. Him work is to make thin and crushable all that is big and as real as ourselves, is to make flat all that is high and rolling, is to make invisible and worthless plenty things that poor people can't do without, like board houses and the corner shop from which Miss Katie sell her famous peanut porridge. And then again, the map maker's work is to make visible all them things that should have never exist in the first place, like the conquest of pirates, like borders, like the viral spread of governments. 3, the cartographer says, no, what I do is science. I show the earth as it is without bias. I never fall in love. I never get involved with the muddy affairs of land. Too much passion unsteadies the hand. My aim is to show the full of a place in just a glance. 4, the Rastaman thinks, draw me a map of what you see, and I will draw a map of what you don't see. And guess me whose map will be bigger than whose. Guess me whose map will tell the larger truth. And it goes on like that for about 30 poems. I'll just read 2 other poems from that book. This one is one that I read last year. I was probably on the screen there. And I'm glad that people in Romania like it, because it's one of my favorite poems. And it's one of the poems that in a small way connects me to Eastern Europe, because it's for a friend, Hanna Andronikova, who is a Czech writer. And she was very ill. I mean, she died. And in that moment, she asked a lot of us to pray for her, and I ended up being in New Orleans, on a bayou, and the boat we were in came across a beaver. How would you say a beaver? Castor? Castor. Castor. Sorry. We came across a beaver. And I always expect that if you come across wildlife, they will run away, and this beaver didn't budge. And I thought that was beautiful. So I was, on one hand, praying for this friend who was ill, and then interposed this beaver. A prayer for the unflummoxed beaver. A prayer for the unflummoxed beaver. So unmoved by the boat's slow approach, the boat drifting across the flat, green acre of water. A prayer for these acres of water which in the soft light seem firm. The squirrels, however, are never fooled or taken in. A prayer for the squirrels and their unknowable but perfect paths. See how they run across the twisting highway of cedars but never crash. A prayer for the cedar balls that break when you touch them and stain your fingers yellow, that release from their tiny bellies the smell of old churches, of something holy. A prayer returned to the holy alligators. You owe them that at least. For just last night when you thought of Hannah Andronikova, you asked them to pray with you, knowing that their prayers are potent at night. The grass is full of their red eyes. A prayer for the grass which the alligators divide in the shape of a never-ending S. You lean over to pull some into the boat in Burma. It is called canapa and can be cooked with salt and oil. A prayer for the languages we know this landscape by, for the French as spoken by fat fishermen, the fat fishermen who admit to the water we are all dying. You understand? Savant? A prayer for the dying that will come to all of us, but may it come soft as a boat drifting across the bayou. May it find us unrattled and as unflummoxed as the beaver. I think it's about something much darker. I think it's about the Middle Passage that transported, Africans from Africa to the Caribbean, and I think that's what haunts the poem. But on the surface of it, it's just a poem about rubber ducks. I'll explain this. In 1992, a ship from China was going to the States, and some of the cargo overturned. And when it overturned, it released into the ocean 28,000 rubber ducks. And they've been sailing for the past, how many years? And scientists actually track these rubber ducks all around the world. They've landed up in Antarctica, in Hawaii, in Australia, some on the coast of Scotland. And it's really fascinating when considering the long, long journey of 28,000 rubber ducks. To them who knew to break free from dark hold of ships, who trusted their unsqueezed bodies instead to the Atlantic, to them who scorned the limits of bathtubs, refused to join a course of rub-a-dub, to them who've always known their own high tunes, hitched rides on the manacled backs of blues, who've been sailing now since 1992, to them that pass in squeakless silence over the Titanic, float in and out of salty vortexes, to them who grace the shores of hot and frozen continents, who instruct us yearly on the movement of currents, to those bright yellow dots that crest the waves like spots of praise. Hail.